welcome back to Wounded on Sixes. Today we're going to be reviewing my latest Mont'ka List that's taking advantage of the new army rule released by GW in the June Balance Dataslate. We're going to go over the list, why we chose these units for the list, and how the new army rule is going to interact not only with our strategy, but with our list building moving forward. So let's get started. So we're going to start off with 3 units of stealth suits here. Now the stealth suits have gotten very, very good because the greater good has gotten much easier to do. So now we can just use these 3 units to basically mark a target, and then any unit that attacks that marked target will get the buff, which will be +1 ballistic skill, but they'll also get rerolls of hit rolls of 1 and wound rolls of 1, as well as ignore cover, because we're going to give marker light drones to each one of our stealth suits. So the stealth suits have gone up in points. They're now 20 points more each. And I kind of thought about not, maybe dropping it down to 2 now that I, you're able to kind of get more guides to a target per marker. However, I still think that you want to run 3 of these guys, even though they're 20 more points each for 3. And the reason is because they're so good now that your opponent is going to try to train them down way more than they ever did before. So the strategy of only exposing a single model in the unit is going to be really key. In fact, in my first practice game, after 2 rounds of my opponent getting wiped off the board by my stealth suit guides, they actually started targeting them down. He targeted 1 unit, killed the entire unit. The other unit was partially in cover, and one of the models lived, so I got another turn of guiding with that unit as long as they passed their battle shock. So you want to make sure that you're only exposing what you need to in the units, but I think 3 is the way to go because it's incredibly powerful, especially in Mont'ka, where we're going to be getting the lethal hits as well with our guides. These 3 here are going to be absolutely key to victory, and I was really impressed with how much more efficient our shooting is now with the rerolls, with the lethals, with the ignoring cover. It's just really, really nice. So I highly suggest sticking with 3 stealth suits if you can. And I know there's going to be this need or want to try to cut it down to 2, just because you can get almost as much utility out of 2 as you could with 3 previously. But I'm telling you, for right now, stick with the 3. We're also going to have a unit of Vespid, and this is kind of just my classic Tau builds. 3 stealth suits, unit of Vespid. These guys are just fantastic for uppy downy. Being able to be a great scoring piece, go anywhere on the board. I have been starting them on the board round 1, just so for an extra unit that screens, and then if my opponent gets to go first, I basically get to pop them off and bring them down from deep strike in turn 1, which is really cool. So I highly recommend bringing a unit of Vespid in every list that you have, because you're going to need something to score, and you want all your other stuff to be shooting away. So at the heart of the list, we have 3 units of crisis suits, and we're going to be rocking a unit of Sunforge, all with quad fusion, and a commander with quad fusion. The Sunforge are absolutely fantastic for taking down monsters and vehicles. And now that we don't have the split fire penalty, I'm really leaning into the crisis suits over the breacher fish in Mont'ka. And the reason is because we can probably kill one thing with the regular unit and then kill another thing with the commander. To me, that's just way more utility than you get out of like the breacher fish combo, which doesn't have deep strike, is very vulnerable to attacks back, and doesn't really have the kind of split fire profile that we're looking for. So we're really trying to lean into that with our crisis suits here. We also have a unit of missile knives. The commander is going to have the quad missiles here. This unit is more for just taking out a singular target. Not really looking to split fire too much here. We're looking for medium to light infantry with this unit. Anything that's exposed out in the open, they're already going to get the free rerolls, but all the lethal hits on this strength 7 weapon are really, really choice. Plus we get all those natural rerolls anyway. So, if you're going up against a unit at full strength, feel free to fish for those lethals, because you're going to get a full reroll to hit if they're at starting strength. So really nice there. And then rounding that out, we have a unit of Starscythes. The Starscythes are going to have the burst cannons, but the commander is going to have an assortment of weapons. Cyclic Ion Blaster, a plasma rifle, actually 2 plasma rifles, and then the burst cannon for him too. So that way, if we do get in a situation where we want to split fire, the commander has a little bit more leeway in his weapons of what it can do. Maybe it's targeting down a character or a larger monster or vehicle outside of what our Starscythes are going into. So I will say it is something to get used to, remembering to split fire, because we went so long in the edition with not being able to split fire. I know the first opportunity I had to, I totally forgot that I could. So make sure you're making a mental note that you can split fire. And I highly recommend split firing with your commanders, particularly in the Sunforge. I mean, I was able to get my Sunforge down, destroyed a unit, and then the commander came back and crippled another one. Like, just really, really efficient. If for, you know, the amount of points we're spending here, we're able to take out one and cripple another unit. That's absolutely fantastic. Moving along, we're going to have 2 units of Piranhas, and I love bringing the Piranhas in Mont'ka because then we can use the feed 'em fish strategy, where essentially we can run our Piranhas up the middle of the board, alpha strike with our seeker missiles, which is actually way better now, because if we can get an infiltrating stealth unit to guide them in, those seeker missiles become really, really effective. But also they help with the feed 'em fish strategy because they're not very durable, and then whatever unit kills them, we can pinpoint counteroffensive for them for 1 CP to make sure that our entire army gets rerolls against that enemy unit. So the feed 'em fish strategy, like I deployed in Mont'ka last summer, we're going to use to great effect here as well. These guys are sweet with a 9-inch scout move. If you get to go first, you can 9-inch scout, then do a 14-inch move, then advance, and then still shoot. That's pretty sick, pretty sweet. I mean, you could really help move block, particularly of vehicles. If you can get like 2 of these in a firing lane, or one in each firing lane for your opponent, they now cannot move their vehicles out of their deployment zone. And that's going to force them to make some really bad decisions that they don't want to. So if you have the opportunity to go first, I definitely recommend doing the Seeker Missile Alpha Strike with them. Put these things in advantageous locations, and then the second they get killed by your opponent, pinpoint counteroffensive to get those reroll targets on those enemy units. I really highly recommend the Piranhas. I might even look to add a 3rd one here, just because it's such an effective strategy to start off the game with these fast-moving units. Again, it doesn't work if you go second, but you know, sometimes going second is really nice too, because we're almost guaranteed that those seeker missiles are going to be guided into their targets, getting full rerolls, or rerolls of hit rolls of 1 and wound rolls of 1. Coming over here, we have 3 units of singular broadsides, and the reason why I'm bringing singles of broadsides now is because we're much more efficient with our guides. So we don't need to double up the broadsides for the entire unit to get the buff. It's so much easier for each one of them to get their own buff, targeting their own marker light target, that bringing 3 individual ones is really nice, because they have a much smaller footprint than the unit of 2 or the unit of 3 would. But it also allows us to put a nice heavy firepower or support piece more places in the board, so we can have 1 on each flanks and 1 in the middle, which is really sweet. Like I said, much harder to target just 1, and because we don't have to worry about maximizing those guide buffs, because everything's pretty much going to be guided, especially turns 1 and 2, that these guys are going to be way more efficient on their own, easier to move, easier to hide, easier to conceal. And I highly recommend running them as singles now, because it worked out really well in my test game. Each is going to have a seeker, each is going to have a rail rifle, each is going to have 2 missile drones, and each is going to have the plasma rifles. Going with that over the weapon support system, just because I want the most amount of firepower possible, and with lethal hits, I'm really trying to maximize that early. We also get to advance for free with these guys in the Mont'ka, so you know, their 5-inch movements are no longer a problem, because we can pretty much just advance them every turn, get them where we need to be, even bring them up forward to make sure that they're getting their entire weapon systems onto a target. Really have been impressed with the broadside, especially the singles. We then have a singular Riptide. He's going to have the heavy ion accelerator, or the ion accelerator, sorry, twin plasma rifle, and he's going to have a bunch of missile drones. You know, this guy really enjoys the lethal hits because he only has the strength 8 overcharge with his ion accelerator. So, you know, being able to guarantee lethal hits, being able to guarantee some rerolls with our guided targets makes this way more efficient than it normally is. And again, I love the Riptide because it's a great holder of the flank. You can put it on a edge of the board and kite your opponent, block them from having a vehicle come up the side against you. Really good at defending your home objective, especially on that right flank when you're playing. So I really enjoy the Riptide here. You're normally more partial to the heavy burst cannon, but in this instance, because we have the lethal hits, I'm going with the heavy ion accelerator because I think it's really just that good. We also have a singular Skyray. The Skyray is just my preferred gunship right now. There wasn't any changes to the hammerhead gun. I was hoping that we'd get like an anti-monster, anti-vehicle keyword put on it to make that rail rifle or rail gun better, but we didn't. So I'm sticking with the Skyray here. Still kind of benefits from the guiding. It does get a free singular hit reroll. It does have twin linked on its missile array. But we also don't mind getting some lethal hits, especially with those missiles. Sometimes, you know, you might be targeting a land raider. You need a 3 and you get a 2. The lethal hits are going to help. The rerolls are going to help. The twin linked is going to help. This thing is a beast against any kind of like Primarch with wings. Awesome against things like fetid bloat drones. Can take out a fetid bloat drone in one shot because you're just getting so many rerolls against it. So a little bit of Death Guard tech there for those who are out there in the meta right now. Really have enjoyed the Skyray. Like I said, I think it's the premium Tau tank right now, as I'm not super partial to the Hammerhead with ions. Finishing out the rest of the list, we have 2 identical Ghostkeels. They're each going to have the twin plasma rifles and the cyclic ion rakers. And, you know, these guys are just fantastic. You know, we put them in the Build the Night workshop on our natural expansion, and we get to just shoot and shoot away. Getting a lot of rerolls with those stealth suits, getting lethals on that ion raker, so we're able to kind of punch up with that strength 8 weapon. You know, the Ghostkeels are one of the best units in the Tau Codex by far. The lone op that we can put onto our natural expansion by having 2 of them down that lane is so incredibly difficult for most of our opponents to deal with that most of the time I have my opponents basically just ignoring my natural expansion because they know they don't have the time or the resources to dedicate to taking out these 2 Ghostkeels. So I highly recommend, if you're not already, getting these 2 Ghostkeels on your natural expansion as fast as possible and playing it cagey there and forcing your opponent to have to make the decision that they're going to come to your natural expansion to try to move these 2 units. Chances are they're going to do it once and then they're never going to do it again because it's just so difficult to move these 2 guys off the expansion. You might kill 1, but there's not enough game for you to kill 2. So that's why I really like doing this, because it kind of discourages our opponent from even trying with our natural expansion. So this is the list. The Mont'ka, as you notice, there's no breacher fish here. Like I said, I'm going with more of a crisis suit heavy build just because I like the split fire on the commanders. So plus I was really disappointed that we didn't get a reduction in points on the breacher fish combo, at least like maybe even the devilfish or the Cadre Fireblade coming down. So with that, I'm sticking with the crisis suits. Let me know what you think about this list. Let me know what you think about the new changes to the Tau army rule. Let me know about some of the games that you've played. You know, how has it gone? Any advice that you could share with us down in the comments section, we really appreciate it. And go ahead, if you've enjoyed this video, give us a like and consider subscribing to the channel. We're trying to get to 1,000 subs. We're getting ridiculously close to that goal. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in and make sure you come back for more Wounded on Sixes.